Okay, so it's with your fingers at the very end, that's the least amount of control for light value. For the medium position, give you midtones, and then all the way down to the front of the pencil will help give you those dark tones. So the first activity on this assessment test is about line pressure and variation. And this is helpful when we are drawing because we want to get in the habit of drawing lightly first and then increasing the pressure when we want to add value. The first one is 2 different lines, and you're basically holding the pencil down. You're going dark to light, flip the pencil up, then go light to dark. So D represents dark, L represents light. And we're slowing our technique down. We're trying to keep the lines close together. I'm not lifting the pencil off. I'm just dragging along the paper, but I'm changing the way that I push it down on the paper. So when it's light, I just drag it, and then when it gets dark, then I slowly push down. So on top, you push down, dark, let it drag, light. Lift up, light, dark. Okay? The second one is one stroke, one continuous line. Dark, light, dark. So I'm holding pressure down, no pressure, pressure. Pressure, no pressure, pressure. And then the third one is the opposite. So it's going light, dark, light. So light, dark, light. No pressure, pressure, no pressure, no pressure, dark, light. Okay? For the second one, this is about your imagination and creativity. Think about the Zentangle project and intro. In this one, you are only using your pencil to illustrate all of these drawing prompts without using any text or obvious symbols. So, for example, how would you describe what an ocean looks like using lines? If you don't know what an ocean looks like, you could do river or a stream. You know, what kind of lines? Are they going to be wavy? Are they going to be straight? Are they going to be close together, far apart? Combination. The rain. Obviously, raindrop is a universal symbol, but we want to stay away from symbols. So how else can you illustrate rain? Are the lines going to be horizontal, vertical, fast, hazy, light, etc.? So pretend that you're trying to communicate with somebody who cannot read. So you have to communicate visually those drawing prompts. So that whole first part of the sheet is about line. And then on the back, and this will be helpful for those of you that were here yesterday, the back is all about value. And so we just talked about holding our pencil and adjusting the pressure to get a good value scale. So a good value scale, which you practice in intro, is the darkest you can get your pencil, and then slowly fading out into your midtones. I move my pencil, my hand further down the pencil so I get the light tones, all the way to white. So this is the kind of value that we're looking for in your drawings. Light, midtones, and then dark. So for the first one, you're practicing. Since you already did the value scale, this one is just an activity. You need to go slow. If you go fast, your lines are going to look like grass or a tornado. Tornado effect is usually like this. So you want to slow it down. Remember, we talked about move the pencil further down. It's easier to go light to dark. It's harder to go dark to light because you have to erase, and then sometimes you can stain the paper, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm matching the box down below. I have that midtone pretty well. You can, to increase the darkness, you can keep your pencil hovered in that area, and you're trying to go slower. to keep the shading smooth and even. We don't want wavy tornado lines, scratchy lines. And then I'm trying to match the value in the box below. It's okay if you go outside of the lines. All I'm looking for is your ability to imitate that value below. Okay, so you're going from light to dark to light to dark, all the way across. For the smoothing shading triangle, the shape is different, that's fine, but it's the same concept. So from the edges, you're going to go to the outside edge, you're going to go from dark to light. Trying to imitate and make it look, we're giving the triangle shading to make it look like it's three-dimensional. And like I said, you could go light to dark first if you want. You can see it starts halfway down that shape, so I could start making my light lines, and then I could blend it into the dark, or you can go dark to light. It doesn't matter which way, you can practice. Alright, so that's how you do the triangle. And then the last one is basic shapes. This will be helpful for me to see how you draw your shapes. And a couple of things that I pointed out that will be helpful is to separate your picture in half. This will help you give you guidelines, so you can make sure that you are drawing your shapes accurately. And it's easier to focus sometimes on one section than the other. So one thing that you want to get in the habit of in this class is drawing lightly. And those of you that are new, when you're drawing, a lot of times you get frustrated because you draw something and then you want to go fix it, and you keep drawing the same thing. You get stuck. That's because you're pushing down on your paper too hard. So for example, I'm going to draw some shapes here. This is how most of you might start your drawing. You start outlining, and then you're like, oh, I don't like the way that looks, and you try to erase it. This is called a ghost image. So your brain automatically goes back to what you redrew, and it gets stuck there. So to avoid that, you want to get in the habit of drawing lightly. And I'm going to show you right now with this composition. So these are the basic shapes, and these basic shapes will help us draw anything. You could think about loaf of bread. You could think about a face. We're going to be doing lots of drawings from observation, and the basic shapes are essential when you're breaking down any object. So I just divided my paper lightly by the grid or the boxes, and this is going to help me draw my shape. So I can see the first shape I'm going to draw is my cone. And I can even use my pencil to line up. Like, see how I'm lining my pencil right here? This is going to show me this is where the bottom of my cone is going to be. This is where the top of my cone is going to be. So I'm using this grid to help me as well. So look at how light I'm outlining my shapes. And this is going to help me if I need to make any adjustments. There's no commitment. I can go back and I can fix it. I just realized my cone was not far over enough. So think about also negative shapes. Look at this diagonal. Bam. That helped me fix my sphere automatically. Okay? Or my cone, excuse me. The next one is the sphere. And again, I'm keeping all of my shapes as light as possible. And a lot of people have difficulties with the cube and the cylinder. I'm going to show you some more tricks you can use with the pencil. So first I want to establish the bottom of my box, or my cube. So it's right about here. And I can see where the edge of my cube lines up. See how I made a little notch here on the bottom of my paper? Remember, I divided my picture in half. So now all I have to do is copy that same measurement, and I know exactly where the edge of my cube is going to be. This is the most difficult part. Everybody always struggles with getting the sides of your boxes. So watch what I'm doing. I lay my pencil in the direction of that bottom box, and then I just move it directly over here, and that helped me it gives me that angle. If you don't want to use your pencil, you could also take a piece of paper. Watch. At that angle. Now I have the exact same angle on my cube. In the cube, the top of my cube, it touches that top. You can, like I said, when you draw lightly, you can come back and erase everything. You need to fix that sphere. I feel like that's lower. I'm going to do the top of my cube. And remember, all of these lines are parallel. They're all equal. So this angle right here is the same as this one. This angle here is also the same down below. Okay? And then finally my cylinder. So it's right on the edge of that box. And one thing that I think will be helpful is I don't really care about drawing the background. I'm just more interested in seeing how you're drawing your shapes and shading them. So for the cylinder, one thing that will be helpful to remember, the cylinder is also evenly divided. This is the center of your cylinder, and that's just a circle on top. It's an ellipse. So you want to make sure that looks round, and then this should be in the center. This should be 2 even halves. And then this bottom part should mimic that curve. So I have all of my shapes drawn. The only thing I'm missing before I start shading is my shadow. The shadows are the most important because it's going to help ground my objects so they don't look like they're floating. It gives them placement on the table. And so now I can begin shading. So I'm going to erase all those mapping lines. And look how easily they're all gone. Because I drew lightly. And now I'm going to start shading. I like to, like I mentioned before, make sure that there's nothing underneath your paper so you get nice smooth transitions. And I like to go light to dark. Establish all my midtones first. And then the very last step is when I go in and I put in the darkest values. And remember, I do that because I'm not committing to anything, and I could easily make changes and corrections if I have sketched everything in lightly first. And the thing that's nice about the value is that the value is naturally going to give you lines. You're not outlining. It's a more advanced technique. You want to avoid looking like a coloring book, what I always call it. So I'm slowly building up that value. And sometimes when I need to get light value, I like to move in circular motions like this. And this helps give me a really nice dull gray. If you want to draw the background, you can, but like I said, you don't need to. I would just put a little a light edge to help that highlight bounce off on the shapes. If you notice, the cube is, this is in highlight. Oops. I touched my computer screen. Oh, come up again. This part is in highlight. This part of the cube is in shadow. So I'm going to start shading that in. This is the darker, not the darkest part. If you notice, on the cube, the shadow below the cube is the darkest. Uh-huh. Yeah, let's go a little past right here. On the top of the cylinder, the values flip, just like we did on top for the impossible triangle. So it's darker on the left and then slowly gets lighter towards the midsection. And then this side is darker to light. So notice how I don't have any extremely dark areas. I've mainly built up all my midtones on all four of my shapes. Now I can come in, like I said, if your shapes are a little bit off, no big deal. I just want to see that you can try, and I'm going to show you how to draw these shapes better to your best ability. And now you're going to come back in, and we're going to start pushing down a little bit harder and building up those midtones. I'm trying to match, you're trying to match the value in the picture. And if you notice, the shadow underneath your objects are actually the darkest part of your drawing. Just to turn on the light, it'll be easier to see it. There we go. And if you notice, it's not a straight line. The edge of the cone is actually white. You don't even see it. And then it slowly, that shadow gets darker and then kind of fades out. And I'm just going to I just keep moving along. Same thing with my sphere. The bottom of my sphere is where that darkest part is. You notice there's a little bit of a highlight, so I'm not even going to build that up. And if you're watching, if you're noticing, I haven't really done any outlines. The value next to each other will create a line. We're making shapes. So that shadow goes straight back to the edge of my sphere and cube, and it helps me helps the edge of that cube really stand out. So I'm just keep going. I'm trying to match the values as best as I can. A little bit of a shadow here on the front of the sphere, so I'm just keeping my pencil hovered. And then on the top of that sphere, shadow gets darker, so I'm going to start to build that up. So you can see the edge of that cube is a little bit darker, so I'm going to give it another layer to make this part darker. And that edge, it's a little bit more of a bite. A little bit, you can see a little bit of a line, but not too much. But the biggest the darkest shadow is in the bottom of that shape. And again, change the angle of that shadow and bringing that shadow out. The shadow comes all the way on the outside of that, and it's darker, so I want to make that darker. And look at how that shadow gave me a really nice edge to my shape. If anybody wants to try Prismacolors, we have them ready for you. You're going to be using them eventually. It's like drawing with butter. No, that's why you need to practice. You're learning. The basics. It's okay. You got to keep practicing. That's why we're doing it. These are the basics you guys should have covered in the intro. If you had me in intro, we did drawings of shoes. We did a couple of still life objects. We can do that in here if we need that. I have all those materials still available. So we do on the cylinder again. Shadow on the bottom is the darkest. You have to keep practicing. I'm in my 40s, so I have lots of practice, but that's why I'm showing you how to do it. And this is also I'm recording it, so you can always go back and watch. But this is basically how you get the shading done. And also, if you haven't yet, you guys can come up here and try these Prismacolors. I sharpened them all for you. They're right up here. And erasers. They make drawing a lot easier. It's like drawing with butter. They're really soft and smooth, and you get value really fast. Try it out. And this class is advanced, so you guys are going to be using, all we use is Prismacolors in this class. I'm a snob. I splurged on getting you nice art supplies. Try it. I think it's better. I enjoy drawing a lot more when I have nicer things to draw with. Just like you enjoy a nicer car than a hoopty. Same thing here. Notice the difference already? It's because the lead is soft. The regular number 2 pencils are fine too, but this will go a lot faster. So that's how you draw all the basic shapes. And remember, this is the intro test, so as long as you're trying, that's fine. You're going to get better. This is the whole semester, you're going to have time to improve. This is just the intro part for me to see what you know. Okay? Make sure your name is on it. On block day, we're going to start our first activity. I'm going to show you guys some more drawing exercises that will help you